Before this video start guys, I haven't gotten any news on Anime King 2 yet. I am thinking about posting the videos over on Anime King this channel guys, the videos that have not finished on Anime King 2 yet guys. But I'll just wait to see what is going on. If I haven't gotten a response by some time past, I'll just post the videos over on here, like what if Naruto was given the Demon Blades, and what if Naruto had a dream that changed everything. I'm gonna be finishing up what if Naruto was sent to the Justice League world. What if Naruto's emotionless ghost? Yeah, I'm gonna finish them on this channel guys, so yeah, just stay tuned, just give me some time and let me see what is going on, okay? So let's get straight into this new episode. Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to Anime King, and today I'm going to be giving you part 6 of what if Naruto was a direct descendant of the sage. Remember to get this one to 200 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends in your social media platform, and also guys, stay in tune for the rest of what is coming your way, and I hope you guys enjoy each and every one of them. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time hearing my voice, and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King and Anime King 3, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support. Remember to comment down below and tell me if you're new, I'll be replying talking about to all of you. So yeah, without further ado, what is to begin this new episode start? The intro. So, the last time we left off, as Naruto and Shizuku made their way as they were still on their journey towards the land of lightning, but they had to pass through a lot of nearby villages and towns. So as they were making their way, a monkey stole Naruto's scroll. As they followed the monkey, as Shizuku went underground, as they came upon some strange underground cavern, as they were attacked, as it was a man that could melt his body to the earth. As Naruto was getting furious as the man took Shizuku away from him, as Naruto started to get angry, as he blasted his way towards the center where the man was, as the man tried to attack him, but Naruto showed unparalleled power that the man couldn't even fathom, as he blew away all the mud, shocking the man. The man wanted to capture him as the man was working for Orochimaru. Those eyes of Naruto's would be a fine specimen. Naruto used his staff as he placed on the man's forehead. The man was shocked as his entire body destabilized. Shizuku was inside of him as Naruto saved her. Shizuku asked what Naruto did, as Naruto had completely severed the man's chakra. Yes, his staff could completely rid someone of their chakra. So at the moment the man was unable to keep his form, as he would be stuck like that forever, just a pile of mud. So with that they headed off as they made their way. As Naruto had spoken to Shikaku once again in his mindscape, with Kurama there, annoyed as ever, as Naruto heard about the legendary weapons that the Sage of Six Paths possess, as Naruto patted Shikaku on the head to make him go and sleep. So with that, Shizuku also unlocked her chakra, as it was blue, dark blue like water, and her body got soaked whenever she used a high amount, as Naruto still didn't know why yet. So with that they continued on with their journey as they made their way through the land of grass. As they made their way towards Taki, where Naruto started to work on his next step, as he was able to cut a waterfall, but he was still using one clone. He wanted to learn to do it by himself at the moment, as Shizuku was getting a lot of practice done with her water manipulation as well. As the Taki Shinobis then came, as Naruto asked them for guidance into Taki, they told him that they had to be blindfolded and placed under a genjutsu to disorient them, as Naruto nodded, as Shizuku nodded as well. But Naruto pre-the-path had absorbed the genjutsu, the chakra off it, so he was perfectly fine, as he was mapping out the way in Take in his head. Meanwhile inside, as a large steel door, as he was banging on it, as someone told Fu to get up, as a young girl rose up out of bed. So yeah guys, so basically that's where we left off. You guys can switch across the place and check it out for yourself. So what do you say begin this new episode? Time to get up, Fu, as a fist banged on the metal door, as orange eyes opened. Fu snorted as she thought about her room, It wasn't even a room, it was more like a prison cell. The dull, white walls, and the metal door, as she was already awake, as she always was. For the past 12 years of her life, she was always awake before the call had came. Slowly, she lifted herself up off the floor, where she just managed to finish her reps, when her warden just called. Technically, he was her caretaker, but Fu knew different. Despite him trying to be polite to her, she saw beyond it. She saw the look of hatred and disgust that all the other villagers give to her. She sighed. Her life had become so routine. She can count it down like clockwork, as she knew what would happen every single day. As the metal door was slid open, to reveal a tall, broad man with a shaved head and a mustache. Fu had known him all her life. Well, all that she could remember anyway. Things had been slightly hazy since anatomy had been sealed inside of her. As she glanced down, right above her left breast, if she channeled chakra there, a seal would show up. "Come on," the man said in a gruff voice, as she could smell a trace of alcohol in his breath. It seems like he has been drinking the previous night. Most of the time, she really hated the things that she got from anatomy. Being able to, well, tell a person exact scent, down to the point of specific detail, even though she had it for her entire life now, it was off-putting. For instance, her caretaker, Kenju, he was with a woman last night, as he still reeked of her perfume and the lipstick that she had worn. Despite him having a shower, she could smell a cheap body wash. Fu could even tell what he had eaten this morning, a simple meal of some white rice, miso, soup, and grilled fish. As she brushed her hair away from her eyes as he followed the man out the room. As the both of them made their way to the Earth compound, the place wasn't very large, only a few space for the essential for living. As Fu knew the exact steps, how many steps it took her to get from her bed to anywhere else. After being down here for so long, she has counted them out perfectly. She had to shield her eyes a bit as they walked outside, the sunlight making her eyes wince. 32 steps. He walked slightly quicker today, Fu thought to herself, as they made their way through the village, passing through back alleys, the place that were not really populated. They wouldn't want to offend the people by making the demon girl make her appearance out in public. Fu couldn't help it as she stopped as her fist clenched, as her caretaker looked back over at her. Finally, they stopped at a location Fu knew quite well, her personal training ground. She snorted. The only reason why it was hers, it was because only after using it once, no one would ever come here ever again. Everyone had this idiotic thought that they might fall under her demonic illusions or something like that. Then again, she hasn't talked to, well, much people to be sure of their motives. She only spoke to her caretaker, a handful of shinobis that she was forced to go on missions with, and their village leader, Shibuki. Fu was, well, feeling hope when the previous leader had passed away from drinking the hero's water. She hoped with all of her heart that Shibuki would be different because he was around her age. She hoped that he would feel some sympathy or something. She was right, but he didn't hate her like the majority of the village. But unfortunately though, he had a rather weak will, as he was quickly manipulated by his advisors, and nothing changed for her. As she walked out in the field, as there was a massive seal array there, it was a gift from Konoha to neutralize the Biju, with one simple hand sign if she was ever going unstable. As she knew that none of the idiots in her village could ever come up with this, she snorted her village. It was more like a prison. The only reason why she wore the headband and, well, go along with their, well, orders was because if she ever did anything the slightest to retaliate against them, it would be severe punishment over and over again. As she scratched, as there was a small collar around her neck, it looked like a small choker. As she knew better, with a single hand sign it would send so much electricity through her body, even with the power of her demonic being inside of her, she would pass out instantly. Depending on the amount of chakra that her caretaker, Shibuki, the advisors, or the shinobis that she went on mission with, they either humiliated her by shocking her for spite, or knock her out with it, or they can use enough chakra to even kill her. Not even her regeneration power would save her from the huge amount of energy that would send through the collar into her body. As far as she knew, the collar would only come off when she died. Maybe not even then, so they can even torment her corpse as well if she do these people. As well as she thought, as they would love to see the demon suffer. As the time passed, her training was complete, as she was led back towards her cell. As the door to her cell closed with a clink, as a tray of food slid under the bottom. As she sat on the bed, looking at the floor, there was 32 floor tiles, as she had counted them. A lot of times now, 14 cracks on the roof, 3 small holes in the wall. She knew everything. This room was her home. It was her life. It was her prison. As she heard her caretaker's steps walking away, as she sighed and picked up her food, white rice, and a few raw slice of fish, the best for the demon. As she ate, before placing it back as she retired to her bed, as she went to sleep, as tomorrow it would just happen over and over again. Time skip. Okay, so what first? Food or supplies? Naruto got his answer as Shizuku's stomach rumble rather loudly, even making a few people pass by turn their heads, much to her embarrassment. Naruto simply grinned as he started to look around for the nearest cafe or restaurant they could get something cheap. They really need to get some more money soon. Okay, food this, said Naruto. Shizuku put her head down as she blushed in embarrassment. The two were in a busy street in Take, shinobi, civilians, all wandering around. They just had to sit through a rather boring talk to make sure they had no bad things to do to the village. After about 3 hours of talking, they were finally released into the village itself. As Naruto went into his pouch, as he produced all the money that they had, "You go grab us something to eat," he said. "I'll be back in a few minutes. I'll go see about getting some chocolate paper and some jobs for money." Shizuku seemed nervous about splitting up, but Naruto patted her on the shoulder. "Don't worry, we're perfectly safe here. Just don't go annoying anybody, okay?" Before she could curse at him, he ran off laughing, waving his hand in a gesture. As she just sighed, as her eyes drifted towards the dango stand. Meanwhile, back with Naruto, as he was moving through a thick crowd. That was surprising because it was early in the morning. But with the jingle of the shakijo, most people move out of the way, he smiled. Another benefit of being a monk. The village was rather beautiful, with the enormous tree standing right in the center. A small river went right around the tree. As he ducked into a side alley, he was going to find anything in this crowded street. But he became lost. Only could find his location with the ever tree, right in the center. As he moved and moved, as he couldn't really find where he was going. He was just going to ask the next person, but he didn't see anyone around. As he turned the street, he nearly bumped into a man with a shaved head and a mustache. "Hello, would you mind pointing me in the direction which I can purchase some supplies? I was hoping to get some chocolate paper for my companion." The man looked down at Naruto as he raised an eyebrow. People weren't in these part of the streets in these time of days, so he was surprised at the monk being here. Gruffly, he pointed towards the tree, generally somewhere around the base. All shinobi supplies are sold in the west era at the tree base. As Naruto nodded, as the man walked past him, as Naruto saw the girl behind him, as she had mint hair falling down her face, orange eyes. As the both of their eyes met, as Naruto saw something before she lowered her head, there was something so familiar about her he could not place. He couldn't see her chakra. There was something suppressing it, preventing him from seeing anything. But when he turned back, the two of them were already gone. He ran a hand through his hair and simply went off. Orange, what a great color for someone's eyes, he thought, as he made his way off. When Naruto and Shizuku finally make up once again, as she was demolishing a small box of dango, as Naruto walked up his seals and pouches filled with supplies, as he also found a few people that need help around their shops. Well, it would take them a week, so they can get some money to move on. Well, that is if Shizuku didn't go too crazy with their dango obsession. "Really, Shizuku?" Naruto said. "Of course, dango's the best. Come on, you must have a favorite food, right?" She was shocked when Naruto suddenly tensed up, as she was confused. She had never seen like this before. He was always happy around her. In fact, she never saw something negative from him yet. Well, except for a few frustration. But he recovered rather quickly though. "Yeah, sure." He waved her off as he sat down, grabbing a stick out of the box. "I guess dango is fine if you promise not to overdo it, okay?" She just smiled as she nodded. As Naruto reached into his pouch after finishing off dango, as he pulled out the paper, "I got chocolate paper. Once we find training ground for it to use, we'll get tested, okay?" "Why can't we just do it now?" she asked. Naruto put back the paper in his pouch. "It's too suspicious for non-shinobis to be seen using chakra, especially manipulation for elements, in the middle of a shinobi village where we aren't even residents. We don't know if they have sensors or any means to sense us. So we should be careful unless we're in a training field, okay?" She nodded. "Fine." "Did you find us a place to stay?" she asked. "Yeah, there was a few temples I passed by, and one of the masters used to be a monk in the fire temple. He will let us stay for a few days until we move on." She nodded with a happy smile, as she wondered what it was like to stay in a temple. "Hey, would I have to get clothes like you?" she asked. As Naruto simply chuckled. No, I think you'll be fine," he said. Time skip, as Fu was in the training field alone, as her caretaker never stayed there when she trained. Like everyone else, he despised her when she was using the Bicho chakra. Well, they always despise her, but they hate being around her when she was using it. Well, a part of her knew that, well, after 7 years now she has been using it and she wasn't used to the chakra yet. As she focused, as she tried to channel the chakra and run through hand sign, it was like she could leave the train ground in the way. If she stepped out of the seal before the man deactivated, she would be electrocuted. He had once gotten drunk and leave her alone there, overnight with nothing but her thin clothes in the rather cold night. And it was the middle of winter. She was sure if it wasn't for the Nanabe's chakra, she would have died. And even when he came back to deactivate next day, he did not apologize. Right now, she was safely using 3 tails of her Bichu chakra, as it manifested as 2 wings and a tail. She had once tried to fly with them, but that ended up with her waking up a day later with a chakra suppression seal in her cell. The seal on her training ground prevent anything from leaving. Right now, this was her safe limit. When she went 4 tails, she became rash and wild, and at 5 tails, she lost everything. As she finished her hand sign and opened her mouth, as she released dust particles, as she switched her hand to the tiger seal, and then the thing scorched the ground underneath it. As she watched it jutsu effect, just 3 tails, and she was able to do this to half of the training field. Imagine if she put all of her chakra into it. She dropped her cloak, as she held her head. There was always a headache afterwards. Don't worry about it, it's nothing. As she turned her head, he heard her voice, as it wasn't Kenjo, and no one else visited the training ground. She thought it might be some new genin, but she got her answer when she turned. If it's nothing, then why won't you... Oh. She saw them. It was a boy and girl, around her age, maybe a bit younger. The blonde was dressed as a monk. His eyes were narrowed, but not in a mysterious way, but she still couldn't see his eyes, as she recognized him as a boy that she had passed earlier on her way here. The girl was shorter, dressed in a Maiko outfit, as it really didn't fit her. She seemed like a girl plain dressed up, and that amused Fu, and she had flowing purple hair. That made Fu a bit jealous, as her hair was always cut short, so it would never impede her vision. As the boy gave a small wave to her, surprising her. Oh hello, I didn't realize the train girl was occupied. As Fu knew what was going to come next. Realization that she was a demon, then insult, and then they will leave. I hope you don't mind. This is one of the only training grounds with a waterfall. And with that, he just walked further in, the girl following behind him, like a small puppy. Fu was confused and shocked. Someone spoke to her. No insults, no threat, no hatred. He just spoke to her. No, it's fine. Her voice was rather low, as she hadn't used it in some while now, and it was a bit scorched from the juice that she just used. As she watched as he made his way towards the waterfall, this train girl was away from the village, so no one would panic when she used her Biju chakra, or get too scared, or no one run into her. As the boy pulled out chakra paper, as Fu recognized that she went through the same test, her own affinities were water and wind. As she watched as the girl in the Maiko outfit took the paper and pushed her chakra into it, everyone was shocked. Instead of getting damp, the thing burst into water, as Fu knew that wasn't normal. As she watched as the blonde removed his top layers, as he made his way towards the waterfall. As soon as he placed his hand on the waterfall, it started to split. Fu recognized that she went through the same thing, but that was because she was a weapon, as she was trained from an early age. To see someone so young doing it, who looked like a monk that shouldn't be going through these kind of training, was so unreal. As Fu knew what was holding him back from completing the exercise, as she couldn't help herself. He's only focused on chakra he's expelling, forgetting to focus on chakra that is already outside of his body, and keep it sharp. Despite her only mumblings, and he was near a waterfall, surprisingly he heard her. As he smiled, he then turned back and plunged his hand into the waterfall, and it split perfectly. Fu was shocked. He heard her, and he did it so quickly. Seemed to be satisfied, he came out of the water and made his way back over to her. She tensed as he approached. Thanks. I was stuck for a while with that. Fu didn't know how to answer. It was strange. As if sensing her unease, the boy smiled as he raised his arm. I'm Naruto, by the way. Fu blinked as she looked at his outstretched arm. As Naruto looked at her, it's a handshake, you know, a sign of friendship. As he said it jokingly, with a small chuckle at the end. But Fu knew that he was gazing her reaction, but she still did not answer, so Naruto lowered his hand, as he motioned over towards where the girl was doing her water manipulation. That's Shizuku, and the monkey's Matsuru. It was only then that Fu noticed a small monkey. It was so covered in girl's scent that she didn't even sense its presence, as it was there watching the girl. If her handler would have saw her, she would have probably been on the ground in pain, as he would have electrocuted her for missing such a thing. Fu, she said, as she cleared her throat. My name is Fu. As Naruto extended his hand again, as Fu reached out and grabbed and threw him over her shoulder. To her surprise though, he landed right on his feet. Well, I wasn't going to ask for a spar just yet, but alright. She shifted on her back foot. She had attacked him and he was still smiling at her. Even if he wasn't cursing her for being a demon, he should still feel some hospitality for her doing that. She looked at him as she realized what he said. What a spar. Naruto blinked in confusion as Fu saw when he blinked his purple eyes just for a second before they returned back to normal. You know, a friendly fight between friends. Fu looked at him. Every moment she spent with this boy, it was like she was learning new things. Why would friends fight, she asked. Well, it isn't really a fight, more like a mock battle to test your skills without your opponent killing you. Fu blinked as she never experienced something like that. Every person she faced in battle, they were already ready to deliver harm to her. It was kill or be killed for her, and she was still alive to get so much experience in the past. So, if we spar, we're friends, she asked. Well, I suppose you can look at it that way. Friends, rivals, comrades. It doesn't exactly produce friendship, but I guess it can be a sign and a start of a new friendship. So you wish to become my friend? Sure, if you want, said Naruto. As Fu became serious. As Shizuku looked over, why? Naruto cocked his head, and he was still smiling. It was confusing Fu. It was making her frustrated. I didn't know I need a reason to make friends with somebody, he said. As Fu was getting even more angry. Stop it, she said. Whatever you're doing, stop it. It's hating me, not enough for you. No, you have to try and break my spirit as well. I won't let you. As she shot forward, her arm outstretched like a blade. As Fu didn't know what happened, as it was so smooth and swift, as Naruto grabbed her wrist and twisted her, flipping over her on his shoulder, as the next thing she knew she was lying down, looking up at the sky. She quickly rolled back to her feet, as she realized he didn't attack her while she was on the ground, as she shot forward. But when she saw he reached towards her wrist once again, she twisted her body as she brought her knee up. But he jumped back, as her body was already moving the momentum, as he grabbed onto her hand and flipped her once again. As she was curling on her back once again, she was confused. He was not harming her. He could have put more force and slammed her, but he was just placing her down on the ground. As she got up, she felt woozy. She felt like they had been fighting for more than 2 minutes now. As Naruto still was smiling. You have a lot of chakra, he said. Fu launched herself forward using chakra to enhance her move this time. But Naruto moved and grabbed her wrist as he held on to her. Fu started to struggle, but she started to feel weaker and weaker. As she felt her legs shaking, he released her as she stumbled back. See? No, that was a good spar. Why? Why are you doing this? Said Fu. As she felt so much weaker, like they had been fighting for hours now. I don't know what kind of inceptions you have about me, but I don't mean you any harm, Fu. Fu looked down and she stared at the ground on their feet. As Naruto started to feel the hair on the back of his neck rise, as chakra started to leak from Fu, forming a cloak around her, the tail. I don't believe you, as she shot forward, as she was moving a lot faster. As Naruto would have to use more than taijutsu this time. He raised his hand, but Fu collapsed down to the ground. The cloak receded as she was grasping at her neck. As Naruto had noticed a small amount of chakra inside the choker, but he thought nothing of it after all his staff. And things had chakra inside them as well. As he looked to see the same man from before, holding his hand in the right hand sign. What are you doing? Said Naruto. The man looked at Naruto surprised. I am disciplining a kunoichi of the village. You do this to all your shinobis? The man looked at the monk, wondering why he was here. No one but Fu and him came here. This is none of your concern, monk-san. Please leave me to deal with the shinobi under my authority. Stop it, she did nothing wrong, said Naruto. The man narrowed his eyes before releasing the seal, as Fu was twitching on the ground, as she gasped for air. Explain what happened here, the man said. My friend and I were wandering the village, and I saw her here. I offered to spar with her, that's all. As Naruto saw Fu picking herself up, her eyes looked glassy and withdrawn. Well, I recommend in the future you do not engage with spars with your shinobis, monk-san. Especially this one. Fu, come. We're going back to your home. As Shizuku came over, as Naruto saw Fu just walking behind the man. Why was he doing that? Asked Shizuku. As Naruto did not answer, as Shizuku heard something as she saw him clenching his shakijo. I don't know, he said, as he finally looked up, his Rinnegan in full display. But I intend to find out. Time skip. Still thinking about that girl. As both Naruto and Shizuku were currently in the dojo, as the man was kind enough to make them stay here, and small mats were in there to provide them with comfort. But despite that, the man was a complete pervert, and he had no reason to hide it. Yes, he said it with pride, as she understand why the man would have a problem with her wearing her micro outfit in here. I don't know how I can't. Did you see what that man was doing to her, said Naruto. Shizuku nodded, as she rubbed at her neck. The image of that poor girl on the ground like that. And when she was finally released, it was like all her life had been drained away, and she was submissive. But it's not that there's anything we can do, right? As the man said, he was punishing a shinobi of his village. If we go against it, they would kick us out. Or worse. As Naruto did not say anything. Ever since he came back from training ground, he hadn't cracked a single smile. As it was strange to see him like this. As Shizuku could see that he was deep in thought. As she was sometimes sad that he had such a kind heart. It mentally hurt him to see people in pain like that, as he wanted to do something to help. And she didn't want to see him suffer. But why would they do that to one of their kunoichi? Surely, it can't be good for them. It wasn't that. She was a Jinjulki. As Shizuku understand now the cloak around the girl, making more sense. Like you? Naruto nodded. He hadn't known until he saw the cloak itself, as her chakra was being heavily suppressed. Maybe if he had Byakugan, he might have seen it. There were faint traces of chakra all around that era, a seal, to prevent her from ever leaving. Slowly, the dots were connecting. Why she seemed so desperate to run away, even in the fight, but she never did. The man was punishing her because he misbehaved. He was punishing her because he could. As he had saw that look in the man's eyes. As Naruto had started to tremble, it was the same look in that man's eyes when he took his precious people away from him. That satisfaction that they get. But why, Shizuku asks. Because people make no effort to understand that we're not the creatures sealed inside of us. It was the same with Gaara. Shizuku nodded as she was told about Gaara's treatment in the sand. So, what are we gonna do? Asked Shizuku. A small smile came on Naruto's face as he looked through the window towards a great tree. We give a lonely girl some friends. Time skip. Hi Fu. Fu spun around as she saw that it was Naruto and Shizuku. She decided to just stop being confused by everything that he did. Otherwise, she would just have a lot of headaches. The duo plus Monkey made their way over. Why did you come back? What do you mean? Said Naruto with a smile. This is still one of the only training grounds of the waterfall. As he stripped off his top layers and made for the waterfall, and his female companion moved forward downstream and continued their own training. As Fu just stood there, unsure what to do. Sure, it was a monk and a civilian, but should she train? For them to know her strengths and weaknesses. But it was like she could just leave where she was. The seals on her neck and the floor saw to that. Also, if Kendra came back and saw that she was not trained to her fullest, she would be punished relentlessly anyway. In the end, she started to go through her taijutsu's form. That was a safer thing to train at the moment, she thought. As she thought about their spar the previous day. As the blonde movements were so calm and fluent. Hers were wild, but his. And he did it in such ways so that he would not hurt her, not even the slightest. Because if she had slung someone over like that, if she had enough pressure, she could break their spine. But he did it so gently. Also, her cloak has never failed her yet. These spars showed her, well, a fault in her style. After an hour of nothing, she made her way over. As Shizuku was still working, but Naruto noticed her. Hey there. As Naruto stepped out of the stream, as the water was rushing down his body, a single drop. As Fu caught her gaze lowering before she blinked out of it. Would you... She gulped. As she steeled herself. Would you spar with me again? Naruto smiled as he ran his hand through his hair to get rid of some of the water that had settled there. Again, Fu found her eyes, memorizing his muscles as he flexed when he ran his hand through his hair. Of course, taijutsu, or more broad, he asked. She was surprised that he knew more, as he was just a monk, right? Taijutsu, she said. He nodded as he grabbed his shakijo, leaving his chest out in the open as they made their way to the center of training field. You are willing to take part in this, despite Kenji warning you, against fighting me or any other Taki shinobi. As she felt like she was obligated to warn him, but she really wanted to spar with him. Naruto simply chuckled as he ran a hand through his hair once again. Well, he said it was a recommendation. I've never been too good with those, you know. With the unspoken signal, Fu rushed forward. As Naruto used his staff to launch himself above Fu, far higher than she expected. As his body spun as he brought his shakijo down. As he tapped her right in the shoulder. As Fu watched him flip. Before he touched the ground, his feet hovered for a moment before they landed gently. Fu paused as she turned to look towards him as she tried to figure out what he did. Seeing the look on her face, Naruto spoke. In a spar, it's okay to ask questions. There isn't any real threat here. Fu nodded as she was still in her fighting stance. Why did you not use a stronger hit when you could have, she said. As Naruto tossed his Shakijo towards the other hand and tossed it back again. It is not the purpose of this style, Kasi no Mai. It's a purely evasion-based Taijutsu style. Her eyes click. You use wind nature chakra to increase your speed of your movements and lighten your body. As Naruto grinned and her figuring it out so quickly, Fu was amazed to easily incorporated chakra elemental nature into a Taijutsu style like that. It was like she was fighting a Jonin, because only Jonins could do something like that. And yet, he was so young. Why only evade? If used properly, such a style would be quite deadly. The Shakijo is not a weapon, Naruto said, it's a monk tool. And as such, it should never be used for violence. We train our body for that, if a need ever arises. Full blink in confusion. To limit oneself was strange to her. Then please, use your other style. Naruto nodded as he planted his staff in the ground and settled into another fighting style. This is a Mizunomai. The fight didn't last so long, as Fu found herself on the floor. What did you do to me? As Naruto smiled, he had no back his clothes, leaned on Shakijo. It's an ability I can use that work well with this style. I can control the flow of chakra even if it's not my own. As he crossed down next to her. As Fu was panting, she was tired to move. I can move chakra into my body or out of it or into something else. To demonstrate, he placed a hand on her shoulder. As Fu was too tired to move, like she normally would on reflex. She felt warmth spread from the touch, revitalizing her quickly. In this way, I can absorb the chakra from anything, in my connection to my own, from plants to animals. Even seals, he said. Fu blinked. Seals? Sure, every seals run on chakra in some form. If you take the chakra away, it becomes completely useless. Perhaps take the seal on the training ground right here. As he placed hand on the ground, pre the path. As he drew the chakra out. As Naruto stood up as Fu followed, mesmerized by the state. As he walked over to the entrance as he ducked head out, to see if anyone was there. Try it, said Naruto. As Fu was standing there, she was at the boundary. As she had scratched a place, she knew that if she passed it, she would be electrocuted. Her foot twitched forward but it jerked back on instinct. Her body refused that it was true, as she slapped the memories of all those agonizing twitches after being electrocuted. Sorry, said Naruto, as he pushed her in the back with his Shakijo. She gasped as she put her foot to stop herself, but she felt nothing. As she opened her eyes slowly, she was out of the seal, but the collar had not been activated and shocked her. She jumped backwards before she touched a ear in front of her. Nothing. And there you go. Fu turned back to him as she collapsed to her knees. Tears filling her eyes, she started to cry. Faced that crying girl, Naruto didn't know what to do as he dropped to his knees. After a few moments of crying, she looked up. Why? Why are you doing this for me? Do you know who I am? Don't you know what I am? She asked. What's that? I see a young girl who has been dealt a hard hand in life. And, as he whispered, after all, us Jinjulkis have to stick together. As Fu head shot up. Wait, you're... As Naruto nodded, Fu looked at him. How did you escape? Naruto rose to his feet, offering his hand to her, as she took without hesitation. Shizuku looked over, but seeing that Naruto was okay, she returned to her exercise. It's a long story, really. So Naruto did told her about, well, his life a brief bit. Escaping from the village, the temple, the stand, and his travel here. The two of them sit on a boulder as Naruto just told their story, as Fu listened. Then we got caught by some talking shinobi girls who let us into the village. As Fu processed what he said. So I'm not alone. There's others like me like this. Gaara. As Naruto nodded. And you? As Naruto knew that his life wasn't as terrible as Gaara's and Fu was. But it could have if he hadn't escaped. Fu, you're not a monster. Nor the weapon this village confuse you, as you are. You're a human being. Your life is not less than any other life in this world. As he looked around for a moment, before his face turned back towards her. What would you do with freedom, Fu? Her hand reached up and touched the collar on her neck. I would... As she blinked, her eyebrow then furrowed. She couldn't believe she was drawing a blank right here, right now. As she realized she had never made a decision for herself. She was a tool, a weapon. Follow others' orders. And she broke those rules, she would be severely punished. I would... As she remembered everything, every beating, every discipline, every electrocution, as her fists clenched tight. I would make them pay for everything they did to me. Her voice was cold and her hair was shut in her eyes. Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder, startling her out of her episode. She was unused to this. As she moved back. Fu, that's not the way to go. Doing that will only make you the monster as they see you as. Don't give them that satisfaction. Fu looked at him in shock. The very person who she thought could understand her pain was rebuking her. She jumped off the boulder as she backed away, looked at him with anger. They wouldn't have the satisfaction if they were dead, she said. People don't deserve to die for their ignorance, Fu. If that was the case, there wouldn't be many of us left. What are you saying? You should understand. You're like me. You should support me, she said. Asked her to walk, but she fell. As she started to crawl away from him on her hands. I will never support bloodshed like that, Fu. The way to find peace and happiness. Well, never be over dead bodies or others. Hatred and violence only. Gain more hatred and violence. Fu got to her feet. Then what? You expect me to forgive them? To pretend like they didn't make my life a living hell? For something I had absolutely no control over. As Naruto looked at her, dropping his shakijo to the side. No, Fu, I would never ask you to do that. Fu was pissed off, raging, as a thin veil of chakra was leaking from her body. Then what, she said. Just leave. Leave and never look back. Go out in the world and find your own happiness, but not at others' expense. Fu wanted to shout, but she could not, as the words died in her throat. As she started to cry, but the tears started to be evaporated. She collapsed to her knees, the cloak dispersed around her. I promise, she said. A long time ago she promised that she would never cry. She would never allow the world to see her pain. Please, just free me from this nightmare. As Naruto walked forward and pulled her right into a hug. As he touched the back of the choker, as it ripped off her neck. As the scenery collapsed down. Fu looked at it. The thing that kept her here. The cause of her misery. She stood up on trembling legs, touching her neck as it felt painful, as that thing was there for a very long time now. She looked towards the village. For a moment Naruto thought that she would attack it, but her cloak then came as two wings spread from her back. The wings then started to flap incredibly fast, lifting her off the ground. She almost tensed, but she felt no pain, no electrocution, as she laughed. As she laughed with tears falling from her eyes, as she saw Shinobi's already getting ready to mobilize her. But she smiled as she shot off in a blur of red, as Naruto waved towards Shizuku, who rushed over. It was real luck that Shinobis never came around here, otherwise they might have intercepted them. As Naruto and Shizuku get in the village and suppress their abilities, did you think you did the right thing by letting her go like that? What if she hurt somebody? I can't say, but at least I know she's not being tortured anymore. I owe her that much as a fellow Jinchuriki. Shizuku nodded. Then what about the village? Wouldn't there be some kind of repercussions with their weapon gone? She didn't like saying that way, but Naruto knew what she meant. Losing Jinchuriki was a large blow to the village. They weren't exactly replaceable. Naruto looked down with sadness as they continued to walk. My master told me once that the Bijus were given out by Hoshirama Senju as a good show of faith for alliances and a deterrent of war. The Bijus could devastate a land with ease, but what he done has failed. What history has shown is, despite the Bijus being a deterrent of war to stop it, there's been 3 great Shinobi War. What if none of the village had Jinchuriki? A scale is still perfectly balanced when nothing is on it. Anyway, nothing gave him the right to hang out sentient beings like they were just prized. Nothing gave him that right, give them away like they were prizes. Shizuku looked at him. The way he was talking, as one could mistake it for him declaring war on the entire world. I have power, and a responsibility to use that power for something great. I want to free the Bijus, and the Jinchurikis they reside in. The hatred of the Shinobi world, even if I have to do it one at a time. The way he spoke and the way his rain gun flared, she believed that he could do it. As he turned towards her, I once promised you that I would protect you, always be there for you so you wouldn't cry ever again. He looked down sadly. The path I'm going to walk down is going to be really dangerous. She cut him off as she wrapped him up in a hug, despite the rain pouring down on them. You saved me and I will never forget that. I will never let you do something like this alone. Never, she said. As Naruto accepted the hug. Thank you, Shizuku, he said. Now come on, you have 6 more to go by my account, she said. As Naruto grinned as he made their way to get out of this village before the Shinobis put in a full lockdown. Time skip. So where are we now? As Shizuku looked over, as even Naruto looked a bit tired. Once they left Take, they run, non-stop running towards the east border. It's not far now. According to the map and that large valley we just passed through, Tonnagune should only be another mile or so. As Shizuku nodded, as she was surprised how she took the news. Before Naruto came into her life, a single mile was long, but know that she could use chakra, it wasn't all that, well, daunting. Are they following? Asked Shizuku, as Naruto looked behind him. No, he said, as he did not see anyone with his Rinnegan, as no chakra stranger were following them. As Shizuku, remember their escape from Take? It was so subtle. Flashback to earlier. Come on, we need to get to the tunnels as quickly as possible. As Shizuku nodded as both her and Naruto set off. Oi, you two. As Naruto froze, as he turned to see the same man that had punished Fu. Can I help you? Shinobi-san, Naruto asked. I need to take you two in for questioning regarding one of our shinobis who was gone missing. The man said Shinobi was such disdain. And how would we be of any help? Naruto asked. The man moved to grab Naruto's wrist, but Naruto leaned back. That doesn't matter, you're in our village. You have to follow our rules. If I demand you come in for questioning, you do. Or I question you right now. I'm afraid that would be inconvenient right now, Shinobi-san. You see, my friend and I were on an urgent errand. Would it be possible for us to reschedule? The man lost his patience as he grabbed Shizuku by the wrist. No, now, are you gonna come with me? Or are you gonna make this difficult? As he withdrew a kunai and was holding it too close to Shizuku. Shinobi-san, please let my friend go. I assure you, this will not end well otherwise, said Naruto. Is that some kind of threat, boy? Shizuku looked at Naruto as she elbowed the man in the stomach, freeing her hand. As Naruto used a universal pull as he got the kunai, as he swiped away the man's leg with his staff. As Naruto stood over the man. No, it was not. As Naruto had lashed out too fast for the man to react. Before he knew it, something was tightly secured around his neck as a blonde stepped back. I would suggest you avoid trying to use chakra. It won't be pleasant if you do. And with that, Naruto turned with Shizuku not far behind him. The man got to his feet as he quickly went through hand sign. But then suddenly, he burst out in tears as electricity flowed through his body from the steel collar around his neck. And from there, Naruto shifted to the ground with his sand, using sand to drain two guards, and they made their way through the village tunnel. As they were dashing from tree branch to tree branch, Naruto paused, Shizuku stopping as well. She looked at him in confusion, wondering why they were standing here, wasting a minute where the shinobis could catch up with them. As Naruto smiled as he turned his gaze to the side, as Shizuku looked up as well, as Fu was there in a tree, looking down at them. It's good to see you so soon, Fu, said Naruto. She dropped out of the tree as she came down. I expect you to be a lot farther with those wings, he said. I had to get something first. As Shizuku noticed that Fu had a red container on her back, held up by the red strap, and the strap made her chest look rather sizable because it was pressed between the center. As Shizuku looked down, feeling very self-conscious. Using the wings for long flights is rather tiresome. I had to land and I saw you running, and as she became rather shy, she took a still look before she focused. I would like to join you on your travels. As she looked away suddenly, at least for a short time anyway. I don't know much about the world except for some information on some other hidden villages. As the seconds ticked by, Fu wondered if asking them was a bad idea, because they were not saying anything. Until Naruto spoke. I'll be happy for you to come with us, of course. As she felt hope explode in her heart. Isn't that right, Shizuku, said Naruto. As Shizuku nodded with a bright smile. Yeah, but we might want to get a move on immediately. So, keep up, Fu, said Naruto. And with that he went off. Shizuku beckoned for Fu to come up. As Fu nodded as she sprinted after them. A moment later, a group of Take shinobis landed. Where did it go? One of the members looked down, studying the ground how the soil had been disturbed. He nodded as he motioned for them to pursue on. The group ended up passing through the border, but they were still being followed. And the Take shinobis actually crossed over the border with them. Well, they didn't really care about the land of rice paddies. After all, they were searching for their weapon. So the group didn't have the luxury of a break, seeing that they were being followed. Fu and Naruto weren't badly affected, as he had large stamina and reserves. The same could not be said for Shizuku, as Naruto did his best by topping her chakra every often, but there was so much strain on her muscles and lungs that chakra couldn't really help the fullest. We need to stop, said Fu as she looked towards Shizuku. As Naruto giving her chakra was really not helping all that much. If we stop, we'll have to face those shinobis. Fine, said Fu. As Naruto knew that traveling with someone like Fu was going to be a rather different experience to say the least. As they came to a stop, as Shizuku leaned up against a tree to catch her breath. Not a moment later, they were surrounded by ninjas. Good, you realized running was futile. Naruto stepped forward between the two groups. I do not wish to fight you, Shinobi-san. If you and your fellow ninjas leave now, this can all and rather peacefully, said Naruto. Huh. The only way this is ending is with the demon back in Take, where it belongs. Stand in our way, and you will only get yourself killed. Some of the shinobi was unnerved when Naruto simply dropped his smile. Most shinobi had a feeling for danger, and right now, they felt it rolling off this 11-year-old. Well, I was looking for opportunity to try this out anyway, as he stabbed his Shakijo into the ground, pulling off his robe in one quick motion, placing it on his staff like a cold rack. Last chance, kid, let us take the weapon, and you'll probably end up in a cell for the rest of your miserable life. That's better than being dead. I would appreciate if you didn't call my friend a weapon, Naruto said, as his hand started to tremble. Not because of fear, but because of the amount of chakra he was pushing into it. As he raised it up slowly, looking at the ninja, as he clenched his fist, as it was almost instantaneous. Each of the shinobis fell down to one knee. It felt like they were carrying an elephant on their back. As Naruto increased the pressure on his hand, the weight pressing down on them even more. What they didn't know was, Naruto has raised gravitational pull underneath them. They were facing 6 times the Earth's normal gravity at the moment. One of the ninja eyes rolled back as he collapsed down. It was like a chain reaction. They started to fell like flies. As Naruto opened his hand as the gravity returned back to normal, he never tried technique on a living being before, as he panted the slightest. As it took a lot out of him, as he turned, as his companions were amazed. As Naruto smiled, Shizuko's eyes widened even more out of fear. As Naruto turned, as a kunai was inches away from one of his eyes. There wasn't even enough time to use Almighty Push. As Naruto closed his eyes, he heard clashes. Something clashed against the kunai violently. As he felt no pain. As he slowly opened his eye, one of the ninja had, well, played dead. Just waiting for the moment Naruto turned his back. He was the one that threw the kunai. As Naruto was holding a black rod, it was thin. It was not in his hand before. It just appeared and he used it on instinct. As the talking ninja saw that it attack failed, as he succumbed to his unconsciousness, Shizuko rushed over as fast as possible, checking over Naruto in concern. As Naruto looked over at the rod, as Fu came over. Why did you defend me like that? She asked. As Naruto ended up dropping the pole by accident, but the moment it touched ground it dissipated into nothingness. After that shock wore off, Naruto looked at Fu, as a smile came back on his face. Because, you're my friend, Fu, he said. But guys, be in subscribe right here. If you want the next part of this to do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. Remember to share to all of your friends in your social media platform. Stay in tune for the rest of the what ifs coming your way. And remember guys, if you're new and this is the first time you hear my voice, and you enjoy the videos on both Anime King and Anime King 3, remember click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and your support. And yeah, I'm off now. See you guys soon. Peace.